More now on our top story, as we've been reporting a massive fire engulfed the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris Monday. Authorities do not yet know the cause of the fire, but believe it might be linked to ongoing renovations. The Paris fire chief says they managed to preserve the main structure of the cathedral, but there is still concern that interior structures could collapse. With me now is Charles Jennings. He is the director of the Center for Emergency Response Studies at John Jay College and the former Deputy Commissioner for Public Safety for the city of White Plains, New York. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
So what are some of the main concerns when you deal with a fire of this size, as massive as it was? What are some of the top concerns that you would have?
Well, cathedrals are notorious for being very difficult to extinguish fires. And given the degree of fire development that was evident from the early stages of this, it was highly likely that there was going to be a complete loss. And so the way cathedrals are constructed in terms of the reliance on wood in the roof, it's almost impossible to get enough water on the fire fast enough to prevent the extension of the fire through the roof as we saw today.
So given that, what were some of your reactions to the initial response to this fire?
Well, the Paris Fire Service is highly professional and highly disciplined. And I have no doubt that with an incident of this and at a building of this importance to the city, that they threw everything they had at it. I think it's a measure of their professionalism that, to my knowledge, there were no serious injuries. Because these are indeed very dangerous fires and very difficult conditions they were under.
Well, we know there were renovations taking place when the fire started. We don't know what role, if any, those renovations might have played in this blaze. But I wonder what are some of the precautions that need to be taken when you talk about renovating a structure like this, a centuries-old cathedral. What are some of those precautions that are usually taken?
Well, first off, there are well-established precautions during a renovation in terms of any impairments to protective systems. Now, given the age of this building, there were very few protective systems, if any, there. So it all revolves around basically being extremely diligent and keeping a very close watch on the building. Now, we don't know the cause, but it's highly likely, or the scenario that we've seen today in terms of a fire originating in or near the roof a few hours after quitting time would be very consistent with a well-established pattern for fires that result from hot work, that is cutting, welding, or perhaps soldering of roof materials on that roof that could have smoldered and then broken out into a fire later on. The precautions would be to have personnel with fire extinguishers on site for several hours after the cessation of any of that work, and certainly for a building of this importance, a 24-hour watch would be totally justified.
So it sounds like you're saying the age of the building, the fact that it was being renovated, that those factors perhaps put that building at increased risk that something like this could happen.
Anytime you have renovations in a historic structure like this, it's a heightened risk, and that certainly bore itself out today.
And what are some of the challenges that exist when you talk about trying to install fire safety systems in a structure like this, centuries old, a church, a cathedral with that wooden construction that you're talking about? What are some of the biggest challenges in doing that?
Well, because of the distinctive architecture and the historical value, there is an importance placed on aesthetics, and to some degree justifiably so. But that imposes extra costs in terms of design and installation of sprinkler systems. And there's some controversy, and some people are resistant to install them because they fear the potential for water damage. But I think the fire record has shown, quite definitively that ultimately it's the best measure for cultural properties is to be protected with sprinkler or other protection systems.
It'll be interesting to see if when they rebuild, those kinds of systems will be something undoubtedly, I would think,
I'm going to go out on a limb and say they
that
probably
they would
will
factor in.
Yeah.
All right, Charles Jennings. Charles, thanks very much for your perspective.
Okay, well.